racism, as Toni Morrison said, is exhausting and a waste of time. So I try not, I don't have anything to prove to a racist. I think that they can go and deal with their mental illness on their own.
We're ready. We're prepared. Do not give in to fear. We are fearless. This is not the time to be afraid. This is the time to stand up and fight back and to resist any temptation for them to divide us. We're in this together. The rule of law is on our side. We will not give in, not give up. We will not capitulate. We will not bow. We will not bend. We will survive.
I've been sitting with this whole, I didn't grow up with ancestors. That wasn't part of my spiritual walk. But when I heard it, when I started leaning in, it made sense. Do you know what I'm saying? When I think about being able to tap into a power greater than yourself, because matter can't be created nor destroyed. Even if I think about it scientifically, it makes sense. How people express that, whether they're making an altar for their, ancestors or whatever, that's on them. But we can tap that all the time and we don't. And I think that's the disconnect. I played a clip from a white woman, yesterday, who talked about this very thing. I think we've been raised in a culture of disconnect, of separation of generations. We were just talking about that earlier too, to be able to think, indigenous people think 7 generations ahead. Matter of fact, I had a conversation with a brother earlier, 7 generations ahead, but they're primitive. But they're thinking about 7 generations ahead, but they're savages. No, they're thinking about the world differently. And I think I don't know if I'm hopeful that people are going to wake up, but I'm hopeful because there are people like you out there that tell me, this can happen. Next generation is coming.
Absolutely. I think there's another key point here, right? When we look at a disconnect between generations, when we don't acknowledge the people who came before us, then we don't acknowledge our elders as their present, right? So I think that there's a lot of disconnect, and there's entire cultures who dedicate a part of their society to taking care of their old. Not only in the sense of like from a standpoint of receiving wisdom, but also just in honoring them, like them being the reason that you're here in the first place is worthy of honor. And I know a lot of times we're doing a lot of correcting in our spaces, especially us as millennials, uh, coming from pre-internet and being into the internet age, or receiving a lot of information. Uh, with that new information, I think we're trying to address some of the ways of the past that may not be so good for us, and trying to figure out ways to correct those. And in a lot of ways, we've done a lot of overcorrection. And I think that that's a part of it that we've been addressing here lately, is just the part where are the places that we've overcorrected. Where are some places that we can meet in the middle, and how do we stop this cycle of like infighting between generations when we all are, standing on each other's shoulders.
Can you tell me the middle?
The middle ground for, so I think that there's a seen and not heard aspect of it that stems from slavery. And that part that stems from slavery is out of a place of protection. Your voice.
So the saying that children should be seen and not heard, that we all
Correct.
were raised, a lot of us were raised with that adage.
Correct. I was raised with it as well. But it also makes you very susceptible to being controlled, and not questioning authority. And I think the overcorrection there is that I'm just not going to respect anybody except for my own thoughts, my own opinions. You gonna hear me, and I think that there's a healthy balance that needs to be found in the middle, where our elders should receive us as adults as much as they did as children. You have to allow people to make that transition in your mind. Even if you saw me as a baby, you looking at me now as a man, treat me like a man. And the same, that can be a mutual respect given. But I think that there's this thing of the adage of respect is earned and not given. Well, who's going to be the earner? You know what I mean? And who's going to be the giver? And I think that is a tough stance for most people, because everybody wants to be the earner and nobody wants to be the giver, or fearful of being a giver and not getting their earning on the other side of it.
866-801-8255. Deante Kyle is here, host of Grits and Eggs podcast. He's back. We talk a lot about race. I wish we didn't have to. A caller who didn't get on, They hung up. They said, what would the world look like without racism? I was get ready to go to them, and they hung up. But
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that because I would love to, just finished reading Sky Full of Elephants, Sibo Campbell's book, where, Cena, I don't know if you've read this book yet, bestseller, where it opens up with the day all the white people walked into the water and drowned. And so there's no white people. And it's just interesting how the people who are left behind, still find whiteness, still have to make up white in the midst of it. And so I think of white as an ideology. It's not a race. It's not a skin tone. Yeah. It's an ideology that most of us are imbued with. Anti-blackness is part of it, right? Deante, like, how do you navigate that?
I take things for what they are, right? So I don't try to be hopeful or optimistic about racism. Like, it is what it is. It's existed before me. It's intensified with the internet. It's intensified with people who look at free speech as, precursor for hate. Like, oh, we want free speech on this platform, and all of the free speech is just anti-blackness and racist rhetoric. So I think the first approach to it is just to not ignore it. Like, it is a thing. It is relevant. It is deeply embedded in the country. It is like the incarnation of the country. The ideology, even down to them signing their names on that document, 1776, is there's a lie held within there that all of those amendments and freedoms are granted to white people, and black people wasn't in mind when they wrote those things. So I think that the first approach to it is just to be honest about it and not ignore it. And I don't have expectations for somebody that don't take their kindness or respectfulness as like an adage that they're not racist. You know what I mean? They just could be, a little bit more cordial about theirs. But I think as you navigate things that way, and you're not just like completely blindsided, or you're able to recognize it in the spaces that it shows up in, then it's about you moving accordingly. I'm not gonna bow my head to nobody in hopes that they'll be kind to me. I just focus on the people who are just as afflicted by this as me, and I don't plead with anybody to, do away with their ways. I think that racism, as Toni Morrison said, is exhausting and a waste of time. So I try not, I don't have anything to prove to a racist. I think that they can go and deal with their mental illness on their own.
It is a mental illness. I think she said that as well.
Correct.
866-801-8255 is the number here. James Baldwin, I forgot who he was. Dick Cavett. I think he was talking with Dick Cavett, and he said this. Play it, man.
If we were white, if we were Irish, if we were Jewish, if we were Poles, if we had, in fact, in your mind, a frame of reference, our heroes would be your heroes too. Nat Turner would be a hero for you instead of a threat. Malcolm X might still be alive. And everyone is very proud of brave little Israel, a state against which I have nothing. I don't want to be misinterpreted. I'm not an anti-Semite. But when the Israelis pick up guns, or the Poles, or the Irish, or any white man in the world says, give me liberty or give me death, the entire white world applauds. When a black man says exactly the same thing, word for word, he is judged a criminal and treated like one, and everything possible is done to make an example of this bad so there won't be any more like him.
Are you, Cena Gaznavi is here, Deante Kyle, Grits and Eggs podcast. Cena does the Foreign Report, right? That's it, Foreign Report. Are both of you optimistic that, because every time we get, like, I feel like the civil rights, man, it's like, okay, Obama, yay, maybe we're post-racial. Are you optimistic? Like, what is it going to take? We can't even get people to show up to the polls, to vote for their own rights and resources. I'm trying to figure out how not to keep being here. I feel like we keep coming back to this place, and it's frustrating.
I was reading the other day about how geared our brain is. Talked about this before. I got diagnosed with ADHD this year, and there's the
This
negative
year?
talk.
You
Yeah.
didn't know
Oh,
before
I
this?
mean,
Oh,
my
okay.
third grade teacher said I had it, and then my parents said you have to pay more attention, Sina. And I was like, okay. And then cut to 30 years later, but then the idea is that the negative talk spins really fast, and our brains are actually wired to emphasize the negative things for survival. And so when I think about if, the book you were just referencing, or if racism was just all eradicated immediately, we're still wired this way to find the negative and to fear, and then to develop these neural pathways that then create this reality where we fear the other, and then that fear creates this dehumanization, and then all of a sudden you've got systemic prejudice that creates a society where you stratify different people. So that is like, I'm not necessarily optimistic until we are able to biologically evolve. Maybe when we finish studying the brain more, we'll know like genetic markers on how to track if we're actually evolving a little bit more, because we don't need to have that fear that our cave people ancestors had and stuff like that. That
Well,
that's
we
what that's you know.
Deante and I didn't have. Neither did you. We didn't have
Oh
cave
Yeah.
yeah, is that right? Is
ancestry.
this why I'm not getting raptured up, Deante? This is a
Right? No,
running
you just
thing on
not.
the show.
You're not getting raptured for other reasons that we can talk about off the air. But yeah, no, none of us came out. Even that narrative, none of us came.
You
We don't have cave. We have no Neanderthal.
what
No,
is
we
it?
did not come
Rib?
out of caves. What?
The rib?
Man, just the cradle of civilization, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, that caveman behavior is kind of, why we here now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not of any fault of our own, but I think the thing about looking for negative things is, like you said, it is a protection thing. It is, but it's also like this overly self-critical aspect of us where we want to constantly like tweak and round off corners and
Mm.
things like that, where you on social media and the 100 people agree with you, but the one person doesn't, and it's like, well, I'm gonna hone in on that part. And it's it's like you could pay attention to the love, but I think the biggest part of the fear is the mistrust, like being forward with trusting others. It puts you in an extremely vulnerable position, because what if they have ill intentions? What if what if they don't extend the same trust to me? So I'm out here being overly trusting and they not trusting at all, and I'm under so much scrutiny from them in their minds that I might as well not have extended my trust at all. So I think the biggest part of navigating those spaces too is, you know, identifying what kind of society we live in, and it's a very give and take uh type structure. Underneath capitalism is all about capitalizing on things, and that breeds opportunists. And that breeds opportunists in very sacred spaces like the church, that breeds opportunities in sacred spaces like neighborhoods. um and it becomes this like predator versus prey mentality, because everybody's trying to get ahead, especially when you start out with nothing. So I think the searching for the negative, to Sahin's part, my bad, let me
Cena.
Cena.
Cena to
Cena.
Cena's
Yeah.
point, is like it is an ultimate self-protection, but it's also like enhanced by the society we live in. Like, you think about the type of stuff you see online. Most of the time, only time you see like positive interactions is when like troops is coming home and their family, like surprising their family, and it's like the tear jerkers, you know what I mean? But for the most part, it's negativity sells,
Yeah.
so the more the negativity sells, the more on guard it makes us, like, you know um just like subconsciously.
We're ready. We're prepared. Do not give in to fear. We are fearless. This is not the time to be afraid. This is the time to stand up and fight back and to resist any temptation for them to divide us. We're in this together. The rule of law is on our side. We will not give in, not give up. We will not capitulate. We will not bow. We will not bend.